Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, as he does every other Monday, live from a bunker somewhere in southern Georgia, Tom Knighton of Bearing Arms. Tom, thanks for coming along for the ride. How's it going today, man?
Oh, well, it's Monday, so yeah.
Okay.
But it could be worse.
I want to start off today, as I usually do when I have you on. I want to start off with a few Tom Knighton stories. And unlike most days, I want to start off with a story that did not appear on Bearing Arms. This one I got off of, what is it? Tilting at windmills.substack.com or tomknighton.substack.com. A story about PayPal. What's going on there, man?
Yeah, well, probably people watching have already been a little familiar with it. PayPal uh, came out that they were looking at uh, penalizing people who spread quote unquote misinformation to the tune of $2,500 being withdrawn from their account. Basically, they were going to create a fine system that they would get to apply arbitrarily and at their sole discretion. They backed off on that. It was described as trying to remember the exact language, but something like an inadvertent release of that it wasn't supposed to go out. It was mistakenly sent out or whatever, which bothers me because why was that even available to be sent out?
Yes.
Right? They were at least thinking about it. Otherwise, ever been written up. What actually happened, I think, was they floated it out. They put it out and said, "Okay, we're going to do this. We can get away with it because we're MF and PayPal." And the rest of the world pretty much looked at him and went, "Yeah, no, you don't," and started shutting down accounts.
Yeah. A
And
lot of
they were
accounts.
like, and they started backing off real quick. Oh, we didn't mean to do that. No, we're not going to do any such thing. Um, but it's legitimately troubling that it was even thought of
Yeah.
because, as I say, $2,500 is not small change anyway. Good luck finding $2,500 in my check.
Yeah. Well, and
I
let's
may have that in savings, but it's not linked.
there are not a lot of certainly nobody in the firearms business. Well, I don't want to say nobody. Very few in the firearms business are still doing PayPal. Um, some in the ammo industry still use it on a limited basis, but a lot of firearms companies and ammunition companies have moved away from PayPal for a lot of good reasons. This is just one more reason I think that you want to go to someplace that doesn't want to control your thought and your speech.
Right. And it's, this idea of misinformation becomes really problematic because we were talking about it before we went live. The Hunter Biden laptop thing was quote unquote that was misinformation. It was Russian disinformation, and Russian collusion was absolute accepted fact by the media. And as time has changed, we learned that one of those is true, one is absolute BS, and it's not the one we were told was.
Yes.
Like, how
The,
would have, if this had been in place, PayPal would have deducted $2,500 from a lot of people's accounts probably over something that was factual. It was true.
Now the question is, would they give it back?
And yeah, that's the big question. And because of the nature of what they were doing, I'm willing to bet they wouldn't.
Yeah. Um, George over
Let's
their
also remember oh, I was just going to say their appeals process at PayPal is awful if there is one. A lot of times there's not.
yeah. We're getting comments in already. I want to get one in from George. Is there a list of 2A friendly businesses somewhere? I don't know about 2A friendly, but I do know the SAF. If you search the SAF.org, there's a list of businesses that are anti 2A that's up there that you want to be careful when you do business with them. But I don't know if there's a list of businesses that are 2A friendly. I think you're going to, if you were to build something like that, I think you'd find a whole lot of local mom and pops and maybe a few corporates, but not a lot.
Yeah, and most of the corporates are going to, even if they privately support 2A, they're going to keep quiet just because they don't want the drama that's going to come with stepping up and saying, yes, we proudly support the Second Amendment. At that point, you start getting, let's say say what you want about any gunners, but they're really good at organizing and going after companies that don't toe the line.
Yeah.
They're much better at it than we are.
You're going to get, if something like that were built, I would think you'd get a list of the corporates would be like the Cabela's, the Academy Sports, the gun stores that are the large gun stores. I think they would be in there. Of course, the firearm manufacturers would be in there.
And probably the hunting adjacent
Yeah.
companies like Realtree,
Yes.
outfits like that. I think you'd see a lot of them on there too, because, let's be perfectly honest, most hunters, even if they're not gun people, are Second Amendment supportive.
Next story, and I got to ask: do you choose the photos that go up on Bearing Arms that go with your stories? Is that a cam thing, or is
That's a me thing.
that's a you thing? The
I
photo
generally
that,
do, and if yeah, I generally do, and if there's a conflict or something, Cam might change it. But 99 times out of 100, it's all me.
the photo that goes with this story, election reporter contradicts himself on guns in the same piece. That photo is classic. I'm gonna go ahead and right now. I'm gonna take and I'm gonna put the link to this story on both the Facebook and the YouTube side. Folks, if you're watching us, open up another browser window and go look at the photo with this story. It is just classic. Let's and I seen this one this morning, and I did the same thing the person in this photo did. You want to talk about this story
Yeah.
for a second, Tom?
Sure, it's a website in Illinois that's covering the Illinois gubernatorial race and all the elections there. And it starts off with a quote from the Republican candidate who talks about how generally you see uh, higher crime in areas that have stricter gun control laws. It immediately after that quote quotes an academic, some professor, I don't remember exactly where, saying correlation does not equal causation. Now this is 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that I don't know how many times on Bearing Arms itself. So obviously I am not backing down from agreeing with that statement. 3 paragraphs later, the author begins to lay out a correlation as if it results in causation by pointing out that Illinois is such and such a rank in gun violence. Mississippi is the worst state for, quote unquote, gun violence, and it doesn't have any gun control laws at all. That's a correlation that does not necessarily represent a causation.
And
Mississippi is very different than Illinois in a lot of ways, including, as I mentioned in that piece, a $20,000 a year gap in median household income. Mississippi is the poorest state in the United States. The only place that you're going to find poor is like Puerto Rico, and it's only not on there because it's a territory.
yeah, the other thing I think they're doing when they include Mississippi is they're including suicides in gun violence.
Yeah, 99 times out of 100, that's what they're doing. They're considering everything gun violence. But even if it is just the homicide rate, economics and education in Mississippi is in the bottom of education too. But those are two things that have long been known to be linked to violent crime.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That does nothing to do with gun laws. If we already know this, then you cannot say definitively that the lack of gun control does that. And what got to me, though, the fact that literally 3 paragraphs earlier, he quotes someone saying correlation does not equal causation. It was it was right there.
Yes.
Honestly, if he hadn't quoted that, if that part had not been in there at all, I would probably have not even paid that much attention to the story because it's just not that big of a thing. And I might have, but and I would have probably pointed out correlation doesn't equal causation, but it would not have been heading the irony. Not,
Yes.
and yeah, that picture was perfect because I read that and I was immediately doing that exact thing. It was
Absolutely.
like,
Um, the other thing that gets me about that whole thing is it seems to me, you know, at least journalistically, this is a case of laws for thee, but not for me. They'll call us out and say correlation does not mean causation, but we're going to be able to get away with it all we want to.
yeah, that's exactly what I think it is that to him it was so self obvious that, oh well, this has to be absolute fact. They never bothered dawned on him that it even was a correlation. To him it was just a simple establishment of fact. And no, correlations work both ways. I have looked at data that supports my position and pointed out that correlation doesn't equal causation. Now, I will often say, but causation does cause correlation. So the lack of gun control laws causing something, causing the violent crime rate to drop. Okay, correlation doesn't equal causation, but if firearm ownership caused violent crime, you should see the opposite of a correlation. I'll point that out.
Yeah.
But still, I'm acknowledging that correlation is not causation. I do it all the time. I make it a point to be intellectually, you know, honest about something like that. And this is a guy who gets paid to do basically what I do. Probably gets paid pretty good for it, all things considered. Nobody gets rich in journalism, but he gets paid for this. An editor looked at it, read over
Yeah.
the entire piece,
Yes.
and that didn't raise a red flag for them either. I mean, it was just, oh my god, how does this happen? How do you allow that to get published? It just mind blowing.
And I've got to admit I'm right now re-going over the bear because I had one in here, a news, another story by you today that hit, but now my browser won't pick it up. Bearings Arms is saying it
Yeah,
can't find it.
yeah, that's probably it got adjusted to a different. To the timing got changed,
Okay,
so it was probably there, and it's going to drop later
all
because I know
right.
the one you're talking about, and yeah, it's um,
Well, let's go ahead. We'll sit. Let Cam do his thing there, and if he wants to drop later, we'll talk about it another time then. But let's go ahead and move on to our next story then. And if we have time at the end, we can come back. But I'm going to go to a story off the Truth About Guns. Uh, and this one, in its Bruin decision earlier this year, the U.S. Supreme Court noted that the Second Amendment means what it says and says what it means. So SCOTUS ruled that any modern gun control measures would have to follow the text, history, and traditions of the 1790s. Enter Bloomfield, Colorado, a Denver suburb with a population of 74,000. Local leaders there have moved forward with a radical, comprehensive plan to make criminals' lives easier. Not only would the Bloomberg City Council ban the possession, sale, and transfer of popular defensive firearms, so called assault weapons, and magazines that feed them, it would also raise the purchase age on some guns to 21. The City Council wants to require the registration of currently owned guns, ban homemade firearms and firearm kits, require warning signage on its gun shop, and have a 10-day waiting period that starts after a background check is approved. What I think, Tom, what they need to realize is Colorado this year dropped state preemption. There is still no that means that local laws can be stronger than Colorado laws. However, they still cannot go against the U.S. Constitution. There is no local law that can that fails that preemption.
Exactly. And they're following the lead of a bunch of other places that enacted bans well before Bruin. Those are being challenged now. They're not likely to survive the current environment on the Supreme Court. If the lower courts do their job correctly, they're going to look at that, even if they agree with it, and say, you can't do it. Because you find a law around the time of the founding, say decade before, decade after, banning certain types of guns. When the Second Amendment was ratified, it covered artillery.
Yep.
It covered private ownership of cannons.
And warships.
And warships. It covered, when we say cannon, we're not talking about like a Smith & Wesson 500 or, a Barrett or something like that. No, we're talking about actual artillery with bore diameters like this, And oddly enough, you could still own those cannons. Those are still perfectly legal, even under current laws. But, if that existed before and after the Second Amendment was ratified, there is no way you're going to find a law that says, yes, you can ban an entire category of firearm arbitrarily because it makes you feel funny inside. Which is all this boils down to.
Yeah.
It's scary. The AR-15 it's scary to them. They don't look at it as cool like we do. They see it and they go, oh no!
I'm really looking forward to the day when I can jump in my M1A main battle tank and cruise down the main street in Sioux Falls, and your construction zone. Who cares about your construction zone? I'll make it.
Yep. It's. I want to be able to get my F-22 Raptor, fire it up, and go to gun rights policy conference that I couldn't make it to this year.
Oh man, you missed a good one this year too. You did.
Yeah, I know. Would again been a great opportunity to smack Petrolino upside the back of the head.
Well,
and since he's probably watching, it'll be funny.
Yeah. Although I don't know, he won Blogger of the Year, man. I don't know if you want to mess with him. He's got a lot of clout now.
Yeah, but it's New Jersey Blogger of the Year. That didn't count. No, seriously, I offered him congratulations, and I do congratulate him for that. I will tease John because he is a friend.
Yes.
I still owe him for whamming me last Christmas.
Well, and we all the three of us were together last year early at the Florida Carry event, and man, that was a good time. That was
it was. That was fun. That was also that when I got sunburned on the top of my head, I didn't know that was a thing. I'd always had more hair than this.
Yeah,
I learned a lesson.
It was in March of 2021.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not exactly.
At the time, I got to know a lot of great people. It was awesome. I would have loved to be able to do that more often.
Well, and Fast PSA, that event is coming up in February of 2023 again. It's in the planning stages. They're going to start promoting it very soon. But if you're out there and you want to interact with people like John Petrolino, myself, I don't know if Tom's going to be able to make it this time, but I know Amanda Suffolk's planning on being down there. Rick Hector's planning on being down there. A lot of really cool Second Amendment advocates are going to be there. get into Central Florida around February, and as things firm up, I'll get Kevin Sona on the air. We'll promote it and get you exact details. But February, this coming February is going to be another one of those. It's going to be a great time. I do want and speaking of Florida, I've got a new sheriff on my radar, Grady Judd, and I'm beginning to really like this guy. AWR Hawkins wrote about him over on Breitbart. I'm going to read just a bit of this. Polk County, Florida Sheriff Grady Judd is telling residents of his county to protect their homes by shooting and looters until they look like grated cheese. Grady told
That's
Fox News
beautiful,
on
man.
Sunday, people have a right to be safe in their home. They have a right to for their property to be safe, even when part of their home may be torn away. And these looters, that's not acceptable. We skip down a little bit. Judd said, I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, you take their gun and you shoot him. You shoot so that he looks like grated cheese. I'm thinking he meant Swiss, but I'll take grated because, I don't
I
want
like
to look
graded
like
better,
either.
actually.
But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Because graded you pick up with a dustpan.
yes,
And I would much rather they have to be picked up with a dustpan and a mop.
yeah.
And because of that, they are not going to have a problem with looting. It's not People aren't going to get
At least
shot
Polk
because
County, yeah.
the looters. Yeah, the looters in Polk County are going to go. No, they'll go to the next county over and loot there. It is the ultimate deterrent, and that's why he probably said it, knowing good and well that it would negate having to do much of any of that. They're, your average criminal may not be bright, but he ain't stupid. When
Yeah.
somebody is basically given permission to shoot them legal, yeah, they're going to rethink that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this is not, and even from this sheriff, this is not the first comment he's made that has made the national news, as in, "Ooh, wow." There's been other comments that have come out of this sheriff and others now in Florida, and I'm really liking that trend of the sheriffs pushing, defending your home, defending your family, and doing it with lethal force if needed.
Well, I mean, it is a fundamental right. It's a right that even in places that, countries that do not recognize your right to own a gun, they still acknowledge you have a right to defend yourself.
Hmm.
How they think you're going to do that is, I guess you're supposed to use harsh language. But they still even acknowledge, yes, you have a right to defend yourself. It's the most fundamental right, and it is the basis for which the Second Amendment is derived.
Well,
It's
and,
not
and
just about defending yourself from criminals, but a tyrannical government, but it's still self-defense. And so, the sheriff making this comment, and sheriffs making comments like this, it's going to create results. It's going to yield exactly what they wanted to yield. I really believe they understand that if the criminal knows that they're going to get shot, they're just not going to break those particular laws. It's not rocket science.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and we need to cut this one short today. We're not quite down to the bottom of the hour, but tonight I have a challenge coming up in just over 30 minutes. I've got Polite Society, and it's me and Charlie Cook, and that's my entire team tonight. And I've got to make that happen in just about a half an hour. And we've got Robert Young. By the way, if you're watching now, Robert Young is going to be our guest on Polite Society in just over half an hour from Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. He's going to be talking red flag laws, not only why they're a bad thing, but how they actually they're designed for mental health, from a mental health. That's how they're pushed through. They're actually hurting people that are targeted for red flag laws. Mental health wise, they're hurting those people. We'll be talking about that in about a half an hour. But we gotta shut this down so I can get the entire thing turned around. Tom, again, on our way out, I do this every week, but I want to do this especially now. Plug your Substack blog and plug what you do on Bearing Arms and anything else you want to do, man.
Sure. TomKnighton.substack.com. It's usually not Second Amendment stuff, but it sometimes is, and it's general politics. So come check that out. Obviously, I'm at Bearing Arms many times a day. You can also find me on Twitter at the Tom Knighton.
Very, very cool. Everybody, thank you for watching. This starts our broadcast week. Please come join me in 30 minutes for Polite Society podcast right here where you're watching this now. And 5 p.m. Central Time, the rest of the week, we'll be discussing the news of the day.